This program was made possible by a grant from the Iowa Energy Center. The city of West Union is an Iowa town of fewer than 2,500 people that typifies many primarily agriculturally based rural communities. West Union is a Main Street, Iowa community and is the Fayette County seat. The people of West Union have a long-standing history of deeply connected civic pride and leadership, and have maintained very high-quality community amenities and services. As the community aged, there was a need to renovate and improve the streets and many other aspects of the infrastructure in the downtown district.
I supported this project because it was necessary. You can go so many years and eventually you have to upgrade. You have to bring things back up to where it's livable. You just can't let things deteriorate like they were.
We had sidewalks that were in very poor shape, street surfacing that was in poor condition, underground utilities, specifically water main, that was nearing 100 years old. The street lighting system was antiquated and in poor working condition. So just an overall need to really update the downtown and get some new infrastructure. Our initial concept was for a traditional type of a streetscape with storm sewer system, more of a traditional type. There really was not a whole lot for storm drainage downtown other than surface drainage by gravity. So the overall project at that time was about $4.5 million. The city just could not afford a project of that magnitude.
I was elected to the chamber board, and for a couple of years, you naturally look at other towns and what are they doing to improve their downtowns. And we knew that we had some issues with our water lines and sewer lines downtown. And these other towns were in the Main Street program. And so for a couple of years, we just kind of thought about it. And in 2005, we were selected to be a RAGBRAI overnight town. And we had the old reliable people that volunteer and help for everything. We had a lot of young people step up and did things that had never done anything, but everybody stepped up and it was great. And so after RAGBRAI, I think that's when a group of us look at each other and say, hey, we're going to apply to Main Street. And if we don't get in the first time, we're going to keep trying until we do, because we can do this. And really, we were one of the rare communities that got into Main Street on the first try.
The Main Street, Iowa community is a community that has applied to the Iowa Economic Development Authority, that has asked for specific technical assistance to help them in a comprehensive manner improve the economic, physical, social, and political health of their historic city centers, their downtowns, with an understanding that Main Street is a historic preservation-based economic development tool. It really helps communities change the dynamics of their district, of their downtown. It helps them over time, if they work this program well, it allows them to increase the number of jobs in the district, the number of businesses in the district.
We were looking for opportunities around the state to demonstrate green and sustainable practices. We also were looking for Main Street communities because they have a tendency to have a core group of individuals who can accomplish this type of project.
We've been fortunate to be recognized by the state as a city that gets things done, and a lot of that has to do with a core group of people that have been involved with the Main Street organization here in West Union.
In October 2007, the Iowa Economic Development Authority's Main Street, Iowa program completed a technical assistance visit to advise West Union about the potential for multi-purpose pedestrian-scale streetscape improvements. The department realized that West Union, with its existing interest in streetscape and other infrastructure improvements, combined with the local leadership and coordination of the Main Street West Union organization, was perfectly poised to be a pilot green community. Iowa Economic Development selected West Union in March 2008 as a pilot green community to demonstrate an integrated, multifaceted approach to green, sustainable revitalization of downtown. With the community on board as a green pilot community, Iowa Economic Development Authority hired consulting firm Conservation Design Forum to facilitate a 2.5-day visioning session in June 2008.
Well, we brought in a lot of local and regional officials, local residents, and a lot of technical support providers to our first visioning session. And we started to look at, what could become of this project. It happened to be that we were having that visioning in 2008, which was right when all the flooding was happening in many parts of the state of Iowa. And so it quickly became obvious to us that we needed to look at some other components, stormwater management and other energy efficiency measures, as we were going through that visioning process.
For West Union, the project was precipitated by the need to replace the water mains under the streets. They're 100 years old, and to get down that deep, they're in the center of the street. You can imagine the entire street was going to be ripped up and demolished. And so it really presented an opportunity for West Union. So there was a need to replace that infrastructure, and that was part of the visioning exercise. But we also wanted to look further into the future and think of how the new infrastructure would serve the community in a multitude of ways.
We do have pristine trout streams that surround our community, and we wanted to make sure that we protected those. And so we looked at a lot of different sustainable stormwater management components that could be incorporated into the project. Well, West Union is a small, rural, ag-based economy, and we needed to make sure that whatever we did here was not just sustainable from an environmental standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. It's a great thing if you have beautiful streets for people to walk on and they look beautiful, but if the businesses that surround that downtown community can't be sustainable from an economic standpoint, the project doesn't work. So we worked really hard to make sure that the things that we did would help the businesses that were already here be stronger from an economic standpoint as well as the environmental sustainability standpoint.
The result of the June 2008 visioning session was the initiation of many of the project concepts included today, as well as development of the community's first principles for future development activities. First principles include collaborative process, sustainable community infrastructure, great setting for local business, healthy natural environment, beauty crafted into West Union, vibrant economy for Northeast Iowa, West Union's unique context, inspiration through education. Nearly 50 potential funding sources were identified. The timing was good to apply for funding for an infrastructure project like this, with federal stimulus funding on the horizon. The committee and key consultants continued working on the visioning priorities.
The original streets were built in 1914. They're constructed of brick pavers, built over about a 2-year time period. About 30 years ago, they were paved over with asphalt, but there were never any storm sewers in the street. So we didn't have the opportunity to tie back in to storm sewers, and we needed to be creative about how we dealt with water runoff. One of the best strategies for dealing with water runoff that we have is porous paving. And the product that we ended up using at West Union is a porous unit paver that allows water to immediately infiltrate into the pavement and into the gravel beneath.
We are hoping to maintain about 95% of the stormwater that falls within the downtown district on site. Other things that have been incorporated is to look at the beauty that we have in our area and the natural limestone, and to incorporate some of those components into the infrastructure so that not only is it functional, but that it's also beautiful and loved.
Because we dug down that deep and we were excavating a big open trench, we also had the opportunity to think about what other utilities the city might need. So we began to look at energy systems for the downtown. Geothermal technologies can provide both heating in the winter and cooling in the summer. And they involve deep wells where the pipes run 300 feet down below the ground, and fluid in the pipe exchanges heat with the earth. So we looked at geothermal heating and cooling systems, in part because they're completely renewable, they're locally based, and the cost to operate them is much lower. So once the immediate infrastructure cost is covered, operational costs are much less.
Looked for opportunities for the well fields and ended up on the courthouse square with 132 vertical wells. From there, those have a mechanical pump station in the basement of the courthouse right near the well field, and then is distributed with new mains that we put in under the center of the streets throughout the central business district. And we also added in service lines that are stubbed to the majority of the downtown businesses, so they have access to that geothermal system from inside of their building after the project.
To me, it's going to be a great thing. I have 2 buildings that are going to be involved with it, and it's going to be very helpful energy-wise, and some nice features are no more need for window air conditioners sticking out the front of windows or doors or that are pretty unsightly, and it's just going to make it more comfortable for people. Hopefully attract some more business downtown due to the savings of the energy costs. So.
One of the things we did early on was to offer free energy audits to any of our businesses in the community, not just downtown but community-wide. And we had over 70 businesses participate in that program. And we partnered with Black Hills Energy and Alliant Energy to offer that at no cost to building owners.
The project took an integrated approach to energy and resource efficiency, including the following elements: energy audits, infiltration testing for individual building envelopes, energy load calculations, individual business case for potential district geothermal users, incentive programs for energy efficiency improvements, rate and governance structure development for district geothermal system, LED streetlights, electric vehicle plug-in charging station.
When we were approached to do an energy audit, we embraced the idea. The energy audit went through, they looked at our lightings. We have so much lights in the bank. They looked at our windows. Our windows were not the greatest. We knew that there'd be an upfront cost to replace the windows, replace the lighting. When we sat down with our board and we looked through the numbers and we realized that it makes financial sense, the payback on the lighting was phenomenal, just under a few years. The windows, comfortable employees, comfortable customers, that makes sense. It makes a good green, environmental, sustainable sense. But more importantly, it allows us as a business to be here as part of the community. So when you have all those 3 things together, it's kind of a, why wouldn't we do this? It just makes sense.
Next steps included the conceptual and schematic design and documents produced in 2009. Late 2009, early 2010, additional funding came online to hire Conservation Design Forum and a local engineering firm to produce the construction documents.
Well, this project has definitely not been without controversy. Many of our local residents felt this project was too expensive for our community to undertake. Many of them did not understand why we would want to seek outside funding. Several people felt you shouldn't be using grant funding for these types of projects. They should be used on other things. So there were a lot of times where we felt like we needed to continue to educate the community, but people still didn't support some components of the project. There were many meetings where people were angry and upset, lots of letters to the editor against the project, and the core group that was helping the project move forward had to continually educate the community, continue to learn more that we could to support what we were doing, and it was definitely a work in progress.
It is incumbent, especially in a project that's doing new and integrated technologies, to bring the public along with the design so that there's buy-in and so that the design is appropriate for this community.
So there were a lot of times where we just wondered, should we continue, should we move on? But what we found is that as the project continued to move forward, we found more and more funding partners willing to come to the table because they were excited about what we were planning to do and were willing to fund the project.
Eventually, funding was received from 17 sources for a total of $10.3 million. Bids for the project were let in February 2011, and construction began in October 2011, continuing all year in 2012, wrapping up in 2013. Much of the work for the project was completed by local firms. Weekly project meetings were held to coordinate between the various subcontractors.
Since this is the business district, obviously the building owners or the occupants wanted people to come in to be able to do business. The requirement was we could only have the door closed for a half a day. In that 4-hour time period, we had to do a pavement removal, an excavation, and then we had to install basically a bridge.
Well, one of the guiding principles of our project was to make sure that we could build on the local economy that was already here. So one of the things that we tried to do was to incorporate the talents of local craftsmen that are already here in the community. And so we worked with our local school students, our art students at our high school. They incorporated drawings of native prairie plants that you would have found on the prairie here in Northeast Iowa. And then we were able to utilize the elements of a local craftsman who worked to help take those designs that the school kids developed and actually bring them to a finished product.
Did the street banner sign here, and they did the art class in town at the local school drew this up, came up with it piece by piece, and then we did the garbage cans, and the same way with those, my wife kind of designed that.
Prior to the project, there weren't a lot of plants in the downtown area, and the environment was relatively inhospitable to plants. The technologies that we're employing, the rain gardens, use both soil and plants, vegetation, root structure, to help remove sediments and filter nutrients from stormwater. If you go out and walk the streets of West Union, you'll notice that they're very diverse, and they're blends of both grasses and what we call forbs or flowering plants. And we've selected plants that flower all throughout the season. In addition to those, we've brought trees back into the downtown to introduce a pedestrian scale to the streetscape. When you walk down a street, it's nice to have a row of trees. It introduces a visual barrier between you and the street environment. It's critical in the summer to have shade. If you've been in Iowa in the middle of July, you know how important that is.
Okay, so we wanted to maintain some of the historical integrity of the community as we moved forward with this project. When they were tearing up the street, they discovered that the historic bricks that were laid in 1914 were all intact beneath the asphalt, and those have been retained and cleaned. We've utilized them in several different places in the project. They've been incorporated back into the street at the intersections. They've also been used as a decorative element along the curb between the sidewalk and the street.
A multitude of efforts have taken place to educate and inform residents of West Union and elsewhere about the projects and specifically green, sustainable community and construction practices. Examples include construction of a demonstration porous paver area, rain garden, and rain barrel installation, community workshops on rain gardens, rain barrels, and green roofs, contractor and subcontractor training on insulation and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning installation best practices. Workshop series for building professionals and homeowners on how to construct a green, affordable home, offered in conjunction with actual construction of a demonstration home.
In some of our early visioning sessions, a lot of people said to us, I remember when everybody came downtown and that was the gathering place. We've also developed a Civic Plaza gathering spot within the downtown district that was a part of the Streetscape project, again utilizing some of the natural limestone that you find in the area. But it will serve as a gathering place for the community to come together.
Studies have shown that communities are better served from a fiscal standpoint with pedestrian-scale, multi-purpose streets. Retail sales are better in shopping areas served by safe, attractive streetscape. Tourists are drawn to these kinds of authentic town settings. Property values are increased as well.
Take a look at our downtowns and dream a little bit. Take a look and look up and see what's up there. If you recall, at one time, our upstairs downtowns were full of offices and full of residents. People lived and had their businesses in the central business district. Now we have some economic data that shows that for every vacant storefront upstairs, our downtown districts have the opportunity to add $20,000 to $40,000 a year in additional economic activity to that district through those residents using restaurants and stores and attorneys and banks right within the district.
So this project has led to two other projects that have come to our community, one of them being a multifamily housing project, which is creating 12 new second-story apartments that will be within our downtown district and renovating the buildings that they are in. It's also led to a facade master plan project that the community is doing, which will renovate 10 building storefronts. It's not just the street project, it really is a comprehensive looking at how do we make our community stronger and how do we continue to revitalize our community moving forward.
My particular building was built in approximately 1885. It was remodeled in the interior in approximately 2007. It's really been fun because it's kind of spurred the interest for other property owners to also upgrade their buildings up and down the street. This particular building has 3 apartments in the upper level, and then the other building that I'm in the process of rehabbing will have 2 more. And that one I'm really excited about because one faces the courthouse square and it's just going to be outstanding.
It's very big thinking of a community the size of West Union to do what they've done. And that is by bringing everyone together to do this collective vision around how do we make our community more sustainable. And not to do one small project, but take it on a very large scale.
It's really unbelievable that a 6-block geothermal district with porous paving and LED lights could be accomplished in a city of 2,500 when it has not been accomplished in any other community across the country.
On July 11, 2013, the community held a grand opening for the Green Pilot project featuring tours and demonstrations.
Among our many problems, we have 2 problems that we can address in our generation: devastating floods and diminishing fossil fuels. This project is a pilot project for the nation, and it will show what geothermal can do for a community on a grand scale.
My goal was to raise a family, and at the end of the day, I was focused on quality of life issues. West Union offers everything that a person would want for quality of life. I've lived in bigger cities. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do was travel all over the state and the Midwest. You get to see towns that are trying and towns that are dying. I'm proud to say that West Union is one of those towns that's trying. They've made efforts to be a community, to pull together and have that long-term sustainable goal in mind.
The West Union project has been featured in many conferences and media outlets at the national and international level. Iowa Economic Development Authority selected West Union to be a pilot green community where many sustainable community development practices could be implemented in an integrated fashion. To help share the lessons learned and to assist IEDA in targeting its future sustainable community efforts and resources, measurement and evaluation of project outcomes are key. Project evaluation will include 3 key impact areas: economic, retail sales, building vacancy rates and use changes, property assessment values, new businesses, business expansions, and business closures. Environmental, stormwater runoff quantity and quality, energy use. Behavioral, social impacts of the green sustainable practices, key changes in behavior, attitudes, and preferences, and recommendations for future green sustainable practices and programs by IEDA.
We're starting to see more and more people come downtown for events. They're walking, they're bringing their families, and we're accommodating to people at all levels. People walking, people in wheelchairs, people on bicycles. It's just a better place for people to be, and we're starting to see those people come back to the community from when they used to really spend time here, and the downtown was the gathering place.
We'll get our young people excited about the community again. And if they do leave the community to go off to college, and a lot of the degrees right now are in highly technical areas, and that's something they can bring back to our community and keep that vibrant revitalization aspect of West Union going in the future.
Well, we've already seen new business come to the community as a result of this project. We have a new dental office that's currently building a brand new office within our downtown district. We have an appliance store and cell phone company that's coming and also building a brand new store. We have another service provider that's coming into one of the buildings that will be renovated as a part of our facade project.
Hopefully my grandchildren will find reasons to stay in this town, and if we continue with these type of projects, I think not only myself, I know there's a lot of people around here that would love to have a reason for their children to stay in smaller towns and their grandchildren.
I do think that I have a responsibility to look at how I can make this place better for future generations to enjoy.
So we know already that the work that we've done is starting to make a difference and will have an impact on the economy of our small rural community.
If I'm a business, I'm going to want to go to that place where the town has embraced an open-mindedness that say, we want to be here. We're going to do what it takes to make sure that we're here for the long term.
The city's leadership has created a new, sustainable approach to updating and improving their infrastructure in a way that will provide a range of benefits to the economy, environment, and society, and serve the community of West Union for many years to come. This program was made possible by a grant from the Iowa Energy Center.
There's so much here and more to come. We don't wish to roam. West Union's more than just a town. It's the place that we call home.